Hi all and welcome to my spoiler-free review of Death Stranding 2, the latest release from the legendary Hideo Kojima, mastermind behind the long-running and much-loved Metal Gear Solid series. This is the long-awaited sequel to its original 2019 predecessor. I didn't create a video on the original Death Stranding at the time of its release, as this channel was on a bit of a hiatus, but trust me, I would have had a lot to say on it. It was my favourite game of that year and I was recommending it to everyone that I knew. For those of you who may not know the story of Death Stranding or the world it set up, let me try and very briefly explain what the game was, and then we can move straight on to discussing Death Stranding 2. If you've already played Death Stranding 1, feel free to skip to the time mark on screen now to just get on with a review. The original Death Stranding was a weird and wonderful walking simulator about a desolate but beautiful landscape where America has become divided due to certain life-threatening components such as timefall and BTs. Timefall is frequent rain that rapidly ages anything and anyone it touches upon contact. And BTs, known as beach things, are essentially ghost-like entities that inhabit the living world and are tethered between both worlds of the living and the dead, connected to a place called the beach, which I'll try and explain soon. They are hostile, and if they capture you, they drag you into a tar-like substance. If one manages to consume a living human being, it will trigger a void out, a huge explosion which will leave a massive crater in that section of the map. Now when bodies die, they have to be incinerated, otherwise they'll necrotize and turn into a BT. Due to the treacherous paths and threats around every corner, porters or delivery people have become extremely important to transport food, medicine, educational books, building materials, and so on. You play as a character called Sam Porter Bridges. He's a bit of a loner and has certain abilities such as being a repatriate, which means he can come back from the dead, as well as having something known as dooms, which means he can sense when BTs are nearby. However, to fully spot them and to avoid a void out, porters use these babies in pods known as bridge babies. They're a link between the living and dead worlds, but they are seen as tools only and shouldn't make too much human connection. Sam is asked by Bridget Strand, the President of the United States, on her deathbed to finish her daughter Amelie's work, this is Sam's adopted mother, and help her connect the rest of the United States to the chiral network. The chiral network in this instance can be seen as a shared viral network between all separate parties across the country, a job her daughter started, but had been taken hostage by a terrorist organisation whose leader is a mysterious figure called Higgs, who seems to be able to control the BTs, and wants to use the power of the Death Stranding for his own twisted goals. It is suggested that he may be behind the cause of the Death Stranding itself in some way, and he is indirectly using Sam in a way. By Sam connecting all these parties up to the chiral network, Higgs can use that to his own advantage. He wants to trigger something known as an extinction event. A character played by Nicholas Winding Refn, called Heartman, explains there has been 5 extinction level events so far, and Higgs is trying to create the 6th. It's revealed that Amelie has been the leader of the organisation all along, and Sam travels to the beach in order to try and talk her out of it. She explains that all the connections he's made has now tied everyone's beaches to hers, and she has opened up the gates from the other side to the darker world. At this point I have to try and explain what a beach is. As far as I understand, a beach is essentially a place souls travel through after death, almost like a limbo. It's a collection of consciousness that is created by all souls that inhabit it, but it's different to each individual. Amelie is able to travel back and forth to her beach due to a condition she had as a child, and Sam often finds himself on Amelie's beach in his dreams and nightmares for comfort. There is then some stark character revelations and the nature of people's relation to each other in the game. Sam manages to foil the plan, learns some traumatic events from his childhood, and manages to save the world from the 6th extinction event. Sam is tasked by the UCA to now dispose of his bridge baby Lou, who he has become very attached to. He takes Lou to the incinerator, but can't manage to go through with it. It's never known for a bridge baby to survive outside of a pod, however Sam chances it, and Lou manages to survive. Sam is now on the run from the UCA for what he has done, and this is where Death Stranding 2 kicks in. Now the game works on a very clever system of an online community that you never see. The whole time you'll spend in Death Stranding will always be solo, however other players' actions in the game affect your world too. So items are placed by other players along the way to help you out, say to get up or down a cliff edge or across a treacherous river. These can be things such as bridges, ladders, ropes, ramps and zip lines. The more you progress in the game, the more you'll find larger structures such as full-scale bridges, shelters to sleep in, cover from the rain which repairs your packages, post boxes to leave items in that other players can find and deliver on your behalf if they wish, and all the while you give and receive praise for this. The game has a great system of very positive reinforcement and not much negativity. You could do extremely bad on a mission and the lowest ranking you'll most likely get would be a C. Now, Death Stranding 2 picks up 11 months after the end of the first game, and we find Sam hiding out with Lou in Mexico. The game largely takes place between the areas of Mexico and Australia in this title. Without going into too many spoilers or the story too much, essentially Sam has to continue relaying the chiral network through these new areas. This is a request by Fragile, who is a returning character from the first game, and in return he will be forgiven to some extent by the UCA for his betrayal. Bridges is no more, and Fragile has a new company called Drawbridge, which has a ship to travel between areas, and a host of other helpful characters to Sam's story throughout Death Stranding 2, all with their own unique abilities. The game has some amazing twists and turns that you'll never see coming, and I want to fully leave these awe-inspiring moments intact for yourselves should you wish to play the game, which I highly do recommend that you do. The first Death Stranding I've been playing for around 6 years now, and I'm still traversing the map trying to get all trophies and 5-star all my connections with all areas. The game partially predicted the isolation of our world with the COVID outbreak, and it helped me and I'm sure thousands of other players throughout these times, as at its heart and very core, Death Stranding is about connections. In Hideo's documentary movie called Connecting Worlds, about starting his company Kojima Productions, he stated that most games are just about how to defeat and kill enemies, whereas this game was more about helping each other and creating a reward system by helping others.
で言うと、同じように世界中にそういう人たちがいると思うんですよね。で、ゲームをやってる人は結構そういう人がいると思って、街中ではみんなとワイワイやってたり、するんですけど、やっぱり一人になって、リビングでゲームやってる人ってやっぱり何かしら社会と合わなかったり、コミュニの中で合わなかったりする人がいると思うんで、ただその人がこのゲームをやった時に自分みたいな人が世界中にいる、自分は孤独だけど世界中に孤独な人がいっぱいいるっていうのを知ることですごいホッとするというか、安心すると思うんですよ。だからそこをゲームで遊んでもらって感じてもらえればいいと思うんですよね。
Death Stranding 2 builds upon the original in so many ways. Whilst the original game was met with mixed reviews as it was unlike anything we'd ever really seen before, although this was intentional on Kojima's behalf, as he likes to always try and create new and groundbreaking video games, this was also an extreme risk on Kojima's part, as this was his first self-invested venture out on his own and it could have gone either way. Lucky enough, people had faith in the visionary game creator to trust his vision and just take the step out into the unknown, no matter how daunting the path may seem. And for this time round, I believe the formula shown in the first game has been out long enough in order to get people who didn't play it past that initial WTF, the first time you may choose to give Death Stranding 2 a try. It allows you to slip more seamlessly into such a strange world, and also helps you understand the previous game, as it has a catch-up video that explains the events of the first game if you feel like going straight into Death Stranding 2. Death Stranding 2 follows the very similar formula to the original game, however it has made significant improvements over its predecessor. The game is definitely more combat focused than the original. There is a massive array of different weaponry, upgrades and abilities that you can apply to yourself to suit your very needs. You'll manage to find your own playstyle, but the game gives you multiple options, whether that be going in all guns blazing, taking the more stealthy approach, taking out enemies one by one, or avoiding the area altogether and taking the long way round. The sheer amount of player accessibility within this game is astounding. No two playthroughs of any player would ever be the same in this game. There is a sense of freedom that this game gives that no other game titles that come to mind offer. At its very core though, the gameplay is the same. You must pass over treacherous paths and plan very meticulously ahead in order to make the best routes. Whether that be stocking up on ladders to cross any rivers you may come across, stocking up on blood grenades to take out any bothersome BTs, or simply leaving any signage to help other players along the way know what's ahead of them. However, this time round, elementally the game pushes back much harder. You'll face forest fires, desert sandstorms, flooding rivers, avalanches, and earthquakes. This theme also ties in heavily to the boss battles within the game with a character called Neil, a mysterious new figure for the entry, who dons a very similar look to the legendary Solid Snake. However, as this is spoiler free, I won't go into this too much. And speaking of the combat further, there is far more enemy types within this game than the original. The most you'd run into is a pack of mules. And although they have their gadgets, this is nothing like the type of ninja samurais you'll face in Death Stranding 2. You'll have to quickly adapt to find a playstyle that works best against certain enemies, whether that's certain ammo types or just the approach in general. This may be more combat focused as the first game had a lot more downtime, and it may have put a lot of players off, whereas this game finds a great middle ground between both camps. Whether you want to camp up on a mountainside ridge and take out a bunch of enemies with a long scope rifle to take over their base, or simply go for a stroll through the beautiful landscape avoiding all enemy combat, the choice is completely yours. The BT style boss fights within the game are also extremely impressive. I remember being blown away in the first game by some of the sheer scale of the boss fights. However, here visually it's even more impressive. I never found it to be too much of a challenge. However, playing it safe and always carrying more than you need to does reward you in the long run. You won't want to get dragged into a BT tar pit with no blood bags on you and no weapons at all. Also in the original Death Stranding there was a general overall system ranking for you as a porter, whereas in Death Stranding 2 there is much more character development and options. There is a skill tree where you can assign stats to Sam to build the character exactly how you want him. This can be a litany of all sorts of different options. You can focus more on the sneaking element by having quieter footsteps. You can have it so your attacks do more damage. You can build up endurance so your stamina lasts longer or you don't get KO'd as easily. It's a really great addition to this that I wasn't expecting. The game will reward you very regularly with secret items and abilities if you take the time to go out of your way and complete side missions. I remember the first time I played Death Stranding 1, I was so encapsulated in finding out what was going on with the story that I just pushed on with all the story missions and skipped all side missions that I could. On my second time playing when I bought the director's cut, I went far more out of my way to take a step back and go around every single camp and boost my star rating with everyone that I possibly could. And I found it, even from the very start of the game, I was being rewarded with items that I completely missed the first time round that were extremely valuable. This can be anything such as a ladder that doesn't disintegrate as easily in Timefall, a pair of walking boots that last much longer than others you can create yourself, an item of clothing which boosts your stamina, a higher ranking level with an exoskeleton that allows you to carry more or run faster. And this game seems to give it to you even more so. You're gifted a vehicle extremely early on in the game, whereas in the original Death Stranding, it first happens at least a good few hours in. This makes traversing the map a lot more accessible, and I believe a lot of first comers to the series will enjoy this aspect rather than having to trek everywhere on foot. There are many themes present throughout Death Stranding 2, whether that be loneliness, the importance of human connections, and the danger of being too influenced within an all-digital age, whilst also touching on mortality in general and the harm we are causing to our planet. The story seems to give enough breathing space between such heavy exposition and events that allow it to sink in properly without getting too overly convoluted. However, there is still the right amount of mystery and questions to everything in this seemingly familiar yet surprising new world. The downtime between the cutscenes allow this information to be thought over in depth. The cutscenes and motion capture performances are extremely impressive in this. What some players may think it lacks in gameplay, it definitely makes up for in cinematics and story. Death Stranding 2 goes to some insane places that may not click with every player, but for any hardcore Kojima fan who has delved deep into the Metal Gear series such as myself, you should know to expect no less. Whereas newcomers may still be somewhat pleasantly surprised to the amount of absurdity they're exposed to throughout this game's runtime. If anything, I feel it creates even more intrigue to keep pushing through and gaining more knowledge about the way this world works. There is a tagline for the game stating, "Should we have connected?" Although there are pros and cons to being constantly hooked up and involved in each other's lives, I believe the game is still trying to remind us, especially after our isolation from our loved ones during the pandemic, that creating meaningful relationships and connections in person is to be cherished. Norman Reedus as Sam Porter Bridges seems to be given a little more depth within this game, although he is still an impenetrable force that seems very stoic and to himself. Similar to his character of Daryl Dixon in The Walking Dead, you may feel that he would be a difficult character to connect to as a protagonist, although when the emotions do come from him it does hit home. All the performances are stellar within this game. There's a great range of the cast, all with their unique abilities and emotions that they all bring to the story. Also, I love Dollman. He's a small companion puppet that you carry around on your waistband that has a stop motion animation to him. He's extremely funny and does break up the monotonous walking from time to time.
Really, Sam? Your buttocks? What about shotgun? I prefer the driver's seat.
There's also an incredible list of celebrity cameos that take place within this game. Hideo Kojima is a self-confessed massive film buff, and he loves to incorporate people within that medium into his games. For example, Tarman is played by George Miller. He's a director of the Mad Max franchise. Tomorrow is played by Elle Fanning. Dollman is based off Faith Akin, who is a director that Kojima enjoys. Rainey is based off Shiola Kutsuna, who's known from Deadpool 2. Alistair Duncan plays the president in this. Neil is based off an Italian actor known as Luke Marinelli. Lucy is based off Alyssa Jung. Heartman is portrayed by Nicholas Winding Refn. Mamoru Oshii, the director of Ghost in the Shell, plays a pizza chef, and too many more to list without this video becoming extremely long. This is a difficult game to review without going into too much, because a game such as this, although the gameplay is very well executed, the story is its main focus, and without delving into the amazing things that make the story so unique and interesting, it's difficult to give a full picture of why this game is so amazing. I'm still early on within my journey of Death Stranding 2, however I wanted to put out a quick video review to try and give some form of aspect of how I feel on the game so far. I hope I've managed to portray the world of Death Stranding and explain it to people who may not be familiar with the territory, as well as give enough information on the gameplay and how the world works, in order to show you the extra abilities and improvements this time round. There's an absolutely beautiful score by an artist called Woodkid this time round, rather than the main focus of the original game soundtrack, which was a band called Low Roar. The tracks that play from time to time when you're just out in the middle of nowhere, just soaking in the peace and the nature around you, especially in a zoomed out perspective, really gave me chills at points. The game is absolutely stunning visually, has a lot of heart, and tells its story very well. The game runs extremely smooth on a standard PS5 system, and I'm assuming it's even better on the PS5 Pro. The load times for this game are absolutely ridiculous, it's some of the fastest I've ever seen. I hope in some way this video has convinced you to go and give the game a try, whether that be the original Death Stranding or Death Stranding 2. It's truly a unique experience. One that's very difficult to translate into words. I just wanted to give some of my initial thoughts on Death Stranding 2 while it was still in circulation. I'm sure there's many revelations and things I'll discover along the way that I wish I would have mentioned in this video once I'd uploaded it. However, like the original game, I'm sure to be playing this for many more years to come. I may even create a more in-depth spoiler review at some point once I've fully finished the game and explored it to my full capabilities. Thank you for taking the time to watch this video, I really do appreciate it. I'm still early in my days of trying to review video games on this channel, and I hope I can sum things up nicely enough for you. I do vastly enjoy creating these videos, as I believe when I look back in years to come, I'll be glad that I created these as some form of time capsule to explain my love for these games. Thank you very much again for watching. Please consider liking and subscribing to the channel for all future content. Until next time, keep on keeping on.